Hello student leaders, my name is Dr. David Roos and I'm the Associate Dean of Student Success in Student Affairs on the Utah campus. I appreciate the chance to take a few minutes with you today, and I'm going to try to cover in 10 minutes what is normally an entire course, and that is talking about leadership and a few leadership theories. Of course, I would be remiss if I didn't start out with this quote from Michael Scott, if you're familiar with him on The Office. He's saying, "Would I rather be feared or loved? Of course, both. I want people to be afraid of how much they love me." So I think that's a good one to aspire to. So let's talk leadership. A basic definition here is it's the art of motivating a group of people to act towards a common goal. If you think about your own experience so far, I'm sure you've all had leaders in your life who have inspired you or helped you think about the big picture, and that's one of the things that leadership does. So I'm going to go through a few examples. As I do this, I'd ask you to be thinking about your own kind of tendencies or the ones that resonate with you. These are not necessarily a right model. They're just different ways of thinking about leadership. The first one is from way back. This is the idea that great leaders are born possessing certain traits. There was a belief for a long time that you really couldn't just become a leader. You had to be born with certain, qualities or capabilities that you'd be able to rise to the occasion. A more recent model is transformational leadership. This is one that I particularly like because it does speak to the idea that as a leader, you can be either transformational or transactional. So a transactional leader is where you're saying, you do this and I will give you this. There's just this transaction that takes place. With transformational, you have where your followers are willing to follow you regardless of any kind of transaction. Some examples in history would be like in a war, a battle, where the leader is able to inspire the troops to go into battle and risk their very lives for a cause. So that's the transformational piece to this. A more recent model is called the servant leadership model. As you can see here, the traits of a servant leader: they're listening, they listen a lot, they're very empathetic, they're able to put themselves in another person's shoes, they're caring about the well-being of their followers, and so forth. So this is, I think, a great model as a student leader, that you think about your classmates in the frame of reference that you're there to serve them and help them and to meet their needs. So I think this is a good one. Another one that I particularly like is called the style theory of leadership. This is contextual, so depending on the situation, you can adjust your leadership style. On the left side, an autocratic leader would be making all of the decisions. This would be appropriate in an emergency, for example, where you needed to just make decisions as the leader of a team. On the right side, a democratic leader is where they allow for some shared decision making, and you help to coach your followers in making a good decision. This is represented in the situational leadership model, where you can see that this is based upon competence. A high competent, I use the word employee, but it can mean anyone you're working with. They're highly competent or they're low competent. And then the commitment level. If you look at the different quadrants here, what would an enthusiastic beginner be? If you think about that, they have low competence but high commitment. I'm pausing so you can think about that. One example, and this is going to be me stereotyping a little bit, so I'm apologizing in advance to McDonald's, but if you think about McDonald's employees, does the supervisor allow the employees to have a committee on how the hamburgers should be made? No, it's very directive. So in that case, you have to basically tell the followers what to do. On the left side, in D4, a self-reliant achiever, this would be a group of scientists, maybe at Los Alamitos, trying to solve a complex problem, and you're their leader. They mainly want you to stay out of their way, right? So you're helping them, you're supporting them, but you're not trying to get in their way. And then you have the other quadrants. I think this is representing a lot better in this particular model, where you can see on the left is delegating. So the scientists, you're delegating them the task. On the right side is directing. So you're directing the employees to make good hamburgers. And then at the top, I think this is where the supporting and coaching, especially A good leaders will often be in these quadrants where you move between being supporting, you're very low directive and highly supportive. This is like treating your followers as professionals. And then sometimes you have to move into the coaching realm where you have to be highly directive and highly supportive. What would be an example of that? That would be maybe a new employee that you have that you need to get them trained, and you're not asking for a lot of their feedback right out of the gates. Another model that I like, this is more recent, it's a strengths-based leadership model. If you've had the StrengthsFinder survey, which I hope most of you have done, this will resonate with you. If you haven't taken StrengthsFinder yet, I would really encourage you to do that. We have codes that we can share with students to take that survey. But you're using those results and using that to leverage your strengths and looking at it as a leader. So what strengths can help you be a better leader? The value of StrengthsFinder is that it helps you focus in on specific traits that you have, being able to look at those of your staff or your followers or your classmates, and to take advantage of the different strengths. Quick reminder about StrengthsFinder, you have 34 different themes that you can refer to. If you've taken it, hopefully some of these will ring a bell as you look at them. Just to share trivia, so these are my top 5 strengths. Learner, input, responsibility, positivity, and connectiveness. So how have I used that? In my role as a leader in student affairs, I have tried to look at like positivity, for example, and to stay upbeat and help others be positive. The input one was one that made sense to me because I'm always wanting to see what other schools are doing. Sometimes I drive my staff crazy when I say, well, what are other schools doing? Let's take a look at their policies. So it's that input desire, and then also learner. Where this can come into play as a leader is if those that you work with, you might want to do this as a team, have everyone share their strengths and then put it onto a grid. I did this with our Utah staff a couple years ago, and you can see it was actually pretty helpful for me to understand the different strengths of my team in Utah. And it helped understand why sometimes we might not be seeing things the same way, or there might be a little bit of conflict. And also to take advantage of the strengths. You can see that Vi, for example, has activator as one of her strengths. And that made sense to me when we were looking at this, that she liked to take action. So this was really helpful, and I'd encourage you to maybe share your strengths with each other. Finally, in my last slide here, I would just encourage you all to be, as leaders, to model professionalism. You're going to be looked to for an example online, in social media, in person. That's part of the game if you're going to be in this role, that you have to be willing to be under that kind of scrutiny. As you are doing so, there will be students and others who might be critical of your decisions or things that you're doing. And I would just encourage you to also employ emotional intelligence. Don't have time to get into it, but something you could look up and try to understand better. It's the idea that when you're able to take critical feedback and maintain your composure, and to not let your emotions drive your response. I've always had one of the best bits of advice I was given when I was starting to be emotional about something. I think my prior boss said, just step away from the keyboard, David. Don't reply to that email yet. So that's something that I've tried to do, is to not reply to things when I'm in an emotional or defensive state. Also, finally, being aware of your own biases. This is something that I think it's great for all of us to be more aware of, about implicit bias. It does require a lot of self-review, thinking about our own blind spots and what we have to learn, in an increasingly diverse global environment and culture, and so that's something that I would encourage you all to be seeking to be leaders in as well. And then finally, just be self-aware. Treat others with kindness, with respect, and you'll be doing great. So I look forward to meeting at least some of you in person, and I encourage you to do your best this year, and I'm excited for you. So hope you've had a great session today, and I appreciate the chance to be able to share this offline due to a conflict that I had, but best of luck. Thank you.